Hey everybody, how's it going? Um, I just had some thoughts after watching all these matches. I wanted to show you kind of a unique perspective of what goes into a dueling map and what makes for a great dueling map in Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. And we're going to look at some examples, but what I see first and foremost is we got to have space. Colors matter, the flow of the map matters, utility and simplicity. And so we're going to look at um, the map that I created on these attributes, and perhaps look at some of the maps that exist within Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast, and successful examples of other maps as well. And so with that being said, I'm going to show you what it's like to design and develop a map and kind of the process that went into this, and one of my other maps for Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. And so you'll see that if I zoom out, way out, you'll see that the whole thing is just a skybox. Make sure I'm recording. Yeah. Okay. That'd be a better way to check that than me just constantly do. Oh, hey, what'd I do? Help! Help! Okay. Okay. We're good. And so this physics clipping prevents people from just jumping over these walls. But I made a really basic, simple structure that makes the space feel enclosed and not totally open. It just provides a nice feel. And I also like light sources to be logical and coming from somewhere rather than just hanging out. And so I added some lights, and they just point down and provide some just basic lighting. And each one of these lights has a value key, which tells you how much light it's emitting. That's pretty cool. And I added rafters that made it possible to just view the duels from different angles. And each one of these floors are textures that me and Windu, one of our top duelists, picked out. And this is actually the same texture as Mage 1, which is one of the most classic dueling maps that we have. And while it doesn't go perfectly with the aesthetic and spirit of this map in particular, it's paying an homage to how important Mage 1 has been in the past for Jk2 dueling. And so that's cool. And you'll see with these red boxes that are pointing to here, it's actually a scoreboard. And so when you activate the game, each one of the buttons requires that you press a number and then unpress a number to get the number to show up on the scoreboard. And that makes it so players don't have to consciously type out, keep count, and remember their scores. That's a big shout out to Jagged Cougar for helping me work that out. In fact, he developed and designed the entire concept, the textures, the shaders, and then he just pinged it to me for implementation into my map, and that's exactly what I did. And so I can't thank him enough. That was just such a big value add, and I can't wait to see that being used. Spawn points I played around with a lot. These purple boxes are spawn points where players come in, and pretty much the map is just mirrored from one side to the other. And initially this area wasn't raised down like this. It was because of feedback from the players. They wanted functional areas to kick off of so that they could incorporate kick flips like the kind we see Scorp use in the matches. And so thanks to feedback from Blob, I added those in. And then again, more rafters that you can view the duel from multiple angles. And then we see, and then what I added here, what you see in these green spots are triggers. And so if you hop on this, it'll automatically take you on a jump to here, so you don't have to walk or jump all the way over there, nice, quickly, and easily. And I added a quiet area for players who want to AFK and chill out and watch duels from up here. And this cushion prevents jump sounds from being made, so it's just a nice quiet area with dim lighting that players can. And we'll see that in the game. The players can just monitor the duels. And each one of these floors was painstakingly picked out and tested against this lighting to see what would be optimal for duels. And what makes for great floors are you want to have a light color to be able to see shadows and steps. And that was good advice from Zeph that I got. And then you want it to be free of busyness, and that's pretty much it. And you want it to have a light texture, because if it's just totally blank, that in and of itself is a little bit distracting. So I try to make it look a little bit natural. And these are just slightly vary from arena to arena, and for player preference. And I see all three of these spaces being used, but not so much the mage one, just because they're so far away, and you can often fit multiple duels on these. So without further ado, I'm going to end this segment, and we're going to transition into what it looks like in the game, and we're going to look at these attributes. So we're going to look at space, colors, flow, utility, and simplicity, and look at my map. And then we're going to look at other maps in Jk2 as well. And so I'm going to cut off this segment, and we will get it going. Let's see if I can do this. I think I figured out my life. So I'm going to dev map worlds greatest x2, name of the map. That's the map that we've seen. And I'm going to activate no clip, which allows me to freely move around. And this was also painstakingly tested for lighting, because we had to make sure the lighting was just right, or else if you go up, the light becomes blinding if it's too close to the sabers. And so we wanted to make sure that that works. And so that's what it looks like, but we've already seen that in some of the duels. And so there's not too much new to show you here, but I do have some additional features. So here's how a scoreboard works. So if you advance 1 point, you hit 1, and then you come back out in duel, that removes the need for you to have to type, because in all the other matches we've seen, it was like 2-1, so and so, and you have to keep track of, refer back to your console and keep count. And when we remove that thought process from duels, it hopefully allows players to focus more on dueling and less on kind of the administrative aspect of having it. And so here's an example of the jumps. So this takes you right over there and right into your duel. This is going to be a great tourney map. That's why I designed it for. Oh, sorry, acid reflux. And this is how you can jump up there. And you'll notice it doesn't make any footstep sounds. And this is a nice little logo. Hopefully I don't get sued by Jim Davis. I'm just thanking all the people who contributed and helped out, but my texture graphics are a little bit low, so you can't really see it that clearly. And I also have these bars that move up and down, and they actually get choppy when the server needs a restart and it's had too much uptime. And so that's an indication of we need to restart the server, and that's why I added that. And you'll notice that the lighting is just relaxing and chill, and I initially didn't have this area, but I found that when I came back down that I needed an area. It's just a community thing in Jk2. People like to have an area to just hide and go AFK and just chill out waiting for people to come in. And that's typically true of the FFA servers, but I also made it possible to hang out up there on dual servers when you're just waiting for people to come in. I found that this map is for duels, but it's also for the community, and it's for all the great people who helped me design it. And I might have done the work, but it was really the feedback. This is the third version of this. So there was World's Greatest, then X1, then X2. And this just went through a lot of reiterative cycles to get it right. And I'm so thankful for everybody who provided me the tough but necessary feedback. And we made something that just works. And I'm really proud that, there's a couple of servers that have this map on it. I think there's LM Duel, LM FFA, JJ Base, and JJ. And yeah, I'd just like to see this used more. I'd like to see the scoreboards used, and we'll see where it goes from there. So when we're talking about space, you got plenty of space. This is a lot of space for duels. And we're talking about colors. The colors are nice and neutral, so it's not distracting from everything. And then we're talking about flow, so it's easy to get from place to place, and there's a lot of different fights and arenas. You can get to any dueling arena in a matter of seconds, so flow's good. And then utility, so I have these areas that you can just kind of kick flip off of. I don't have a high enough rank and force jump. I'm gonna fix that. There it is. Okay, cool. I'm gonna kill myself. That'll allow my force to reset, and you're going to be able to see that Scorp can come through and do his infamous kick flips, and that's a part of the reason why I added this. I wanted that variation, but then if you didn't want to do that, boom, you got it right there. And I also realized that players need to have like a death pit to just jump in and just hack each other to pieces, because apparently that's a thing. And yeah, so that's how we got to this point of designing what I hope is considered a really good duel map. And I'm trying to say that cautiously because there's always room to improve and get better, support and remain humble. And, you know, I'm still accepting feedback on this, and there could be an X3. So, I was very tempted to rule out an X3 with, like, training areas, but Ice, one of the junkie king, he told me, the JJ King, he told me that, you know, you should stop focusing on that and just... It's an engineering phrase. What's said a lot is better is the enemy of good enough. And also, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that same kind of concept. And I was sold on that. So this is likely to be the last version. So we're actually going to switch to another map that I made. And this was the first map. Oops, no, I don't want to do that. Let's go to Coach G City Streets 1.2. Put in, I think, 120, 160 hours on this dev work. There's a city portion here. We're not going to explore that because we're only focused on dueling aspects, but this is actually what got the whole ball rolling on me mapping again, because I had such a clear vision in my head of what I wanted in a duel map. I wanted some aesthetics in the background that weren't too busy but still made it look like Bespin. And Bespin is a world on Star Wars, and or is it a planet? Oh god, Ice is gonna kill me for not knowing that. I should know that, being the Star Wars guy I am. But I made lots of different angles for people to watch duels. And so when we're talking about in terms of color, everything is nice and neutral, and all the stronger elements are far off and out of the way. And we're talking about flow. So again, you can get from each duel area to each duel area super easily. And I made these barriers right here, varied height, but also big enough to make the duels feel separated. In terms of utility, there's a couple of errors, and one of them is that this becomes super blindingly light on max graphic settings, and so that's an error that still needs to be corrected in the next version of this map. But other than that, the lighting is pretty good, and this area is actually still utilized despite that. Most of the duels are occurring between here and here, and so I had this whole concept baked out in my head prior to ever putting the pen to paper, and so I'm really happy with how it turned out, and we used it as a default map for a while. And so I try to make this be the perfect casual dueling map and perfect community map, and so that was my goal in developing this. And so for every aspect that you desire in a dueling map, including the frames per second staying solid on my old ass laptop, that was super important as well. And so if I see any frames drop to like 120 to 110, then even on my old laptop, I still stress test that, because I need players to be in the optimal environment, and that's what we should demand of all duel maps, really. And so let's take a look at some other duel maps, including the Jk2 defaults, and you know where they possibly fall short, and why we need custom duel maps. But before I go there, actually, I want to show you one of the best dueling maps of all time, and that's called Mage 1. Now, is the most respected duel map of all time. I match on this map all the time, and it's so simple, and you don't need to have fancy geometry and all that for a duel map. This is perfect. In terms of color, everything's neutral, sky is dark, so nothing's busy and distracting. You just really can focus on the duel, so that creates good utility. And the flow, obviously, is perfect. The players just go right into each other. Only good for duels, not so much for TFFA, but that can be true of a lot of duel maps. And yeah, this is just a fantastic, simple map. It is perfect. And if we view this from a spectator... Oops. Oh, I can't do it in duel mode. My bad. Can I go no clip? No, I didn't enable cheats. That's fine. But yeah, and then there's little flames that burn on top of it for extra mood. And I've been dueling in this map since, jeez, since forever ago, and it's a fantastic map. I love it. It's timeless. It's my favorite map to duel in. I don't know who made it, but they are fantastic. So let's take a look at some of the default dueling maps as well. And you get to see why we needed to kind of make our own. And so this is one of the default Raven Software did a great job developing this game in such a short time crunch that they had to do it. And something crazy like they had to develop all this in 12 months, including the single player campaign. But anyway, somebody fact check on me on that. What kills this map? Okay, so a player spawns over here, and a player spawns over here. It's good if you want to adapt, but really the only feasible dueling space is here, and maybe a little bit here. Not great because I want to see the space. I want people to have enough room to move around, and so that's what necessitates the, what I would say, all the space that we've seen in the prior maps. And so that's why I built out to those requirements. So with that being said, we'll see another one. So space is an issue there. Colors are great, but the utility aspects fall so short that, you know, it necessitates custom maps. And I'm so glad we've had a community to come around and form that. Now this is the classic carbon chain in with Luke. Or at least the or some form of that, right? And so we see the air veins and the fog and like the carbon chamber where Han Solo was dipped down into. This is where the door you enter in the single player campaign. Space is okay. This big pit in the middle might be a little bit of a problem, but I suppose it's tactically interesting to have such a thing. And it's also tactically interesting to have kind of steps up here that you can kind of like sweep and then jump into, get into a defensive stance, block, they'll come up and you can kind of ward them off. So I would actually say utility is better on this map than the shuttle bait map, but the lack of space makes it kind of difficult. So if you're really trying to stress test and have a master competition, I probably wouldn't pick this, but I'd probably pick it for individual interesting challenges where there are obstacles in the map that you want to show that you can plan for, execute, and play around with. So this is a great map. Falls a little bit short on utility, but for the Star Wars immersion aspect, it's pretty cool. Now we're going to go back and see a couple others. The Trial Pit. This is pretty cool for the same reason, but again, that small... It's actually kind of annoying that there's this small pit because the tendency to fall down and then the changes in elevation here and the lack of space make it a little bit difficult to duel here. But, you know, you have the space to make this feasible. It's not a bad map. Nice, simple, colors are nice. The flow is easy. You got all these elevated platforms to provide potential obstacles you can kind of adjust for. Like it's possible to just like complete a red and then jump up to cover your exposure, but you don't see that in high level competitions in Jk2 anymore. And I'm not really sure that you ever have. You know, everything's conceptually based off of one big open space and then like ancillary areas off to the side. So and this departs from that expected behavior of like I think it was expected that players were going to use these obstacles and whatnot, but really what Jk2 competition became was all about having an open space and kind of a ring like you'd see in boxing or MMA or like in a basketball court as well. You don't see there's like a hole in the middle, right? So it's just people like to compete in open spaces and spaces that they can understand easily, and that's kind of just it's always a preference in competitive games. So we're going to look at one more default map. We're going to see, let's see. I actually want to show a loser example. We'll do one loser and then we'll do the winner and call it good. So, Battleground Jedi 2.0, Soldier Trip, The lighting is a little bit weird, though. I don't think the lighting sources are that logical, and that already kind of off-puts me. And so one player spawns up here, and then as we come down, we see the main dueling area here. And then the other player spawns inside of here. Ironically enough, I think that this is the most feasible dueling area, because if you go out here, it's an okay amount of space, but there's so much elevation. It's just, with the Quake 3 engine, it's so, changing elevation like this is kind of tricky. It might look visually like, okay, there's different stuff going on, but again, I think people prefer simplicity. And also when you step in this water, there's no splashing. And it also bobs kind of wildly, and it doesn't flow in a consistent way, so it's kind of just confusing. But anyway, it's a classic map. It's a nostalgia trip, but it's also not that functional and doesn't have that great a utility for dueling. And so for that reason, this is also just yet another reason what necessitates custom maps and people who can come and build on the assets that Raven Software was able to develop and do some of their own stuff as well. Now we're going to show a winner by Raven Software. I've given them enough grief. I really like this one. And so one player spawns here, or one player spawns there or here. I can't remember entirely. But this is a default map that a lot of servers use because it wasn't as easy to get a hold of custom maps as it is nowadays with automatic downloaders in Jk2 MV. And people would duel here, and this is plenty of space. This is solid. And the biggest thing you would have to worry about is accidentally rolling off and taking hit damage. So we see that with 92 HP down below. And yeah, that's essentially it. And we would duel right here. And this is plenty of space. It's good. It's simple. And there's enough kind of Star Wars-ish Yavin Temple ambience to make it interesting. And it's also not so busy that and we got light colored flooring. It's not so busy that it's distracting. And so this is a great dueling map should any players not have any custom maps. So this was always a good option to go to as well. This is a good dueling map by Raven Software. Well done. And so that's a little bit of what goes into making a good dueling map. I'm not sure who would be interested in hearing this, but if you're interested in map design for Jk2, or you got into it as a result of this video, or you just hated it and found it to be the most snoring, most snooze fest in the world, that's okay too. Leave the feedback below. And again, it's a pleasure always to cast this game, even for these kind of ancillary non-dueling, non-fighting things, because I've just conceptually fallen in love with this game so much over the course of the last 18 odd years, and it's just always a pleasure to cover and talk about this game, and that has given me thousands of hours of, at least 20,000 hours of entertainment for that one cheap price, and a community that is still continually supportive and well maintained to this very day. And so I'm going to wrap it up there, and I will see you in the next one.